back-to-back conferences, but before those two conferences, I was in Washington, D.C. with the FDX group. And the FDX group is also doing data exchange like a number of other people. And my whole pitch is we got to break out of the silo and see each other's. And I was absolutely amazed at some of the products and services that the FDX members are doing, particularly how it relates to how customers might be qualified. And of course, the surety industry is very deep in qualifying its customers. So I've asked the FDX group if there was any great relationship with the surety industry. And he said there really wasn't. And so I am encouraging that. And on top of that, we have a whole group that's been involved in the Orange Button, not only on the business side, but in academia. And in that regard, I'm so happy that Jorge here is from Texas A&M, which has been working on sustainable communities, and Dan Kamen, who's been working with the Energy Department to develop next generation infrastructure that covers a wide range of things, all of which I think can be benefited by a digital ecosystem of multiple stakeholders from multiple industries, all being able to communicate together. So what I've asked my friends at FDX is if they would be willing to share a little bit in a short half-hour deal, as you can see, everybody's here, so that I can send something to my insurance companies so we can have an actual follow-up meeting with a lot of detail. So now I'm going to switch it over to Don Cardinal to introduce himself and the FDX group. And Russ, if you can make sure that he's the one being recorded.
Hey folks, I'm Don Cardinal, Managing Director of Financial Data Exchange. Open finance and its little cousin, open banking, is simply the idea that customers should be able to permission their financial data and share it securely with other parties. Now, it's been going on unofficially for about 25 years. If you're familiar with Yodlee or Mint or any of the other tools, you give up your ID and password to your bank, your data comes across, and all of a sudden your QuickBooks are pre-populated. That's all well and good, but the world's a lot scarier place than it was 25 years ago. And so we, as a consortium, the banks, the fintechs, the aggregators, and other parties in the space got together and said, hey, we need to modernize this. And so we've got this RESTful API. We've got about 76 million consumers connected to already to use OAuth tokens instead of IDs and passwords to basically modernize this. It's gotten good traction, so much so that the CFPB has actually put forth regulation, and they're going to mandate that banks going forward as at certain deadlines have these APIs and eliminate screen scraping. And I've got Ryan Miller on from the American Bankers Association. We'll talk a little bit more about the regulation in a minute. But the idea is we've got to reduce the risk surface for this. This is clearly happening. 1 in 3 Americans has shared access to their accounts, both banks, brokerage data, and even life insurance, property and casualty with one or more fintechs in the last year. It's kind of the Moore's law of data sharing. It hadn't stopped. But we're seeing some really cool stuff. So if you see Experian Boost, the ability to use your banking data to boost your credit score or to give credit to thin file or no file people, to be able to connect to like a payroll company like an ADP, do verification of income and assets, all in real time, all from authoritative sources, so that you don't have these long delays in selling a mortgage, writing an insurance policy, doing AML and EKYC. That's the beauty of this. It's all customer permission. So it's CCPA, GDPR compliant, hooray, but it's also best in class security. So that's the why we're doing this. Screen scraping, bad, risk unacceptable, real-time data makes all our processes go faster and make us more money. Hooray. Government got involved and said, hey, this is pretty cool. We need to accelerate this for those long tails. We don't want to have digital haves and have-nots like we saw when online rolled out. Remember when your big bank got online and mobile and your credit union didn't? And they said, no, we can't do that. So there's a regulation that's proposed. It's likely going to drop in October from the CFPB, and they're going to have deadlines by the size of institution. The bigs are likely going to have to offer APIs and have a plan for discontinuing screen scraping in April 25. The next wave is the not so bigs, the tier 2s, likely in October of 25. Then the next wave down gets a little bit of a break. They get 2.5 years. And the final wave of smalls, local community banks, Don's Credit Union and Taxidermy, will likely have to do it by October of 2028. So that's what's coming. So yeah, there's good stuff out there. We're sharing data. We've got this huge critical mass in the US and Canada. It's likely the FDX will be the named data standard in the US and Canada. Again, not just for banking, but also for investments as well. And then 2, the regulations helping drive some of the more reluctant people in the space. So I had 2 minutes to talk about what we do, what we're fixing, and why there's laws coming. So I'm just on time.
Well, thank you, Don. And so I would like to introduce Ryan Miller with the American Bankers Association. My big advocacy is data standards cannot be done by individuals or by single entities. It really needs to have the broad scope of trade associations that have everybody's membership protected and supported. So Ryan, if you could touch base a little bit about the ABA and some of the services you provide to your members.
Yeah, thanks, Dixon, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. So, as Dixon mentioned, Ryan Miller with the American Bankers Association. So, we're a trade association that represents banks of all sizes, community banks, regional banks, all the way up to the bigs, as Don Cardinal called them. And so, we do a variety of services for our members. From advocacy and policy discussion to assisting them with compliance, providing training to their employees, engaging with policymakers in order to lead to guidance and to establish best practices across the industry. So there's really anything that would be in a bank's interest or something that's on their plate for them to do. That's something ABA tries to offer. So particularly with this issue, I had a chance to meet Dixon at the FDX summit. So as Don mentioned, there is the proposed rule that came out that is looking to establish certain requirements for consumer information data sharing. One of the things I think to bear in mind, and I think is important for our purposes here, is there's just going to be a compliance floor, but that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be market reasons to perhaps go beyond that floor. So one of the things that's interesting about the proposed rule, and again, it's proposed rule, it's not final yet, but it only involves certain account types. It's really starting off at Regulation E accounts, Regulation Z credit cards, and then ways of facilitating transfers to and from those accounts. So there's a lot of accounts that are involved in the open finance ecosystem that aren't going to be touched by this rule. But that doesn't mean that this doesn't lay the groundwork for us to think about ways to share things that are not subject to the rule, because as Don mentioned, I think it's really important to understand that the method of sharing through an API is a prevailing best practice, far more secure than screen scraping. And so the foundation that's laid by this proposed rule could be something to build on for a lot of account types, even those that you don't necessarily quote unquote have to. So I think that's going to be really important to bear in mind, especially for information that could be done beyond those types of accounts. And then we do expect more rulemaking to happen in the future. So there's a lot to dive into this rule, but ABA is certainly interested in working with other industries and in order to help our members comply with this, and then also use it as business opportunities themselves. So as a way of potentially creating new products and services. So there's a lot here. I'm happy to field any questions and go into more detail about any of the particulars. But it's a pretty expansive and ambitious rule. So I think it'd take longer than half an hour to explain what's in it. But if we have some questions, I'm happy to go into that. So thanks, Dixon.
Oh, and thank you, Ryan. As I mentioned, our insurance partners, most of them said, I don't think I can make it in that short a time period. And I said, this idea is to introduce them and then to invite them to a follow-on where they know what they're getting into, and they'll have the right people in the audience. So on the call is Jan Rippendale, which has been a big leader in the DOE grants and has helped create the data standard for the Solar app and the AHJ and the Orange Button. Jan, if you could touch base a little bit about how the insurance companies could work with the work you're doing with Orange Button.
Certainly, thank you. So the most exciting elements of Orange Button is pulling the finance together with the technical requirements for utility and solar scale businesses. And the biggest aid to this is the fundamental XBRL insight that when you know a value of something, you don't know the units and the other timeframes and stuff that are associated with it. This is super important for everything around utility security and managing timing and grid stability and all of that coordination that we're going to see now and in the probably more scary future that is likely coming. So in addition to securing the financial information, which we appreciate FDX working towards, we want to also have a common data standard to secure our utility and usage information. And the XBRL format, we are using JSON, which is a more modern version of that, but the fundamental insights about what it takes to make those data standards work globally and across all of the different constraints is absolutely applicable and truly valuable for the solar industry.
Great.
So,
Thank you. And so the orange button expanded the XBRL taxonomy, but XBRL obviously has got itself now doing JSON and other elements. Mike, if you have an opportunity to describe a little bit about how the SEC is using XBRL and making it more available to other formats, if that's possible.
Sure. I mean, we've been using XBRL since the mid of 2006, something in that range. We make those data sets available to the public. Jan is absolutely right. The migration to JSON will occur at some point in the future, but right now we're using the XML version. One of the things we also leverage is the freely available data quality rules that registrants are able to apply to their submissions before they submit, so they can fix any data quality issues before they make their submissions. So that's another key processing idea that enhances data quality. I'll cut it off there, Dixon. Thanks.
Yep, I appreciate it. And so one of the big industry leaders out there that are really hurting cats much more than I am is Andreas. He hosts the Digital 360 Summit and also a digital roundtable where he brings innovators in to describe next generation. Andreas, can you jump in and just introduce a little bit about what CMG is doing to help move the ball along?
Yeah, couple of things. So I have my time at CMG, a consulting firm that is transforming itself into a digital infrastructure developer. We deploy broadband networks. We're building solar farms. We're doing street lighting as a service. And we are just entering the space of housing. We're doing multifamily buildings, sort of a smart living of the future with solar panels, energy storage, electrification, EV charging, and then water treatment, water management for living solutions that range from 250 units to 10,000 units. And then on the university side, I'm a professor at Texas State University, and I'm building 14 living labs. And we have energy and utilities and connected and autonomous vehicles and all kinds of flying things, electrification, grid impact. And we have a grant right now with TxDOT where we are driving denser mobility and the build out of 10,000 vertiports across the state of Texas and the creation of the vertical economy, which is primarily electrified and fueled by electricity. And so happy to be here, and anything we can dive into later on. We design smart cities and all kinds of things like that. And so we're a destination, a partner, and probably an integrator of everything you all do.
Oh, great. I appreciate that, Andreas. So coming out of Texas also is a dear friend of mine, Jorge Venegas. We've gotten to learn through various meetings. Jorge has been helping put together an Institute for Sustainable Communities at Texas A&M. And one of its core, of course, is the ability for everybody to get together. Jorge, could you talk a little bit about what you're doing at Texas A&M?
Yes, nice to meet you all. I have been with Texas A&M almost 20 years, and for the last 2 or 3, I have been working in developing a conceptual framework and a business model for sustainable communities as a catalyst and integrator to build capacity within communities. I had the honor of being in charge of the Colonias program along the border for 16 years. And I learned a lot about those communities. And what I'm trying to avoid is I'm from the university, I'm coming here to help. I'm from the government, and I'm coming here to help. So we work with communities from the inside out. And the model that Dixon has seen is very basically bringing together what would an institute look like that is within academia, but is not academic driven, I don't believe in just chasing the grants. I know too many people. I was dean here for almost 14 years, and I saw too many people build grants and grants and grants, and nothing was really left behind except the indirect that pays for the university and a lot of papers and citations. So I'm kind of more action oriented, and I'm transitioning more into that more than anything else. So it's very, very nice to meet you all, and I'm here to serve.
Great, thank you, Jorge. And so one of the groups that I met with, Jorge, is the Construction User Roundtable group. They had an OS2 working group where I got to meet Don Bowden. And Don Bowden has been creating a new platform for construction that can coordinate with our insurance partners. Don, could you take a moment a little bit and describe what's going on in your world?
Sure, Dixon. Thank you very much. My name's Don Bowden. I'm with Builder Chain Network, and it is a construction industry platform that's being powered by Palantir technology, including Foundry and AIP. So we're bringing those network resources to provide an integration and transformation platform that we can create a operational fabric to orchestrate the construction industry in a more efficient way and include all the stakeholders involved in a construction project and not just a few. So we are providing that cross-organizational integration and operations imperatives. So that's pretty much it. Dixon?
Have you ever in your history seen the insurance company or surety company be able to work with a collaboration partner where the construction data is?
Well, I think that's our opportunity, isn't it? I think at the end of the day, historically, we've all been working with a lack of transparency and visibility, and the Builder Chain Network's mission is to provide that transparency and visibility when the authentication and permissions warrant.
And to our insurance colleagues, you know, what we've done on this call is showed you very multiple place. Don, obviously construction data, but you know, I call it the golden rule. He's got the gold rules. And the finance industries, we've been approaching to look at private use of surety in the private sector. So Matthew Mancuso and I have been working to try to develop the finance component where the finance industries can actually look at data for the first time and these new AI tools. Maddie, do you have a moment and describe, you know, the financial market side of this improved data flow? Maddie, you're on mute. All right.
I'll say the same thing.
There he is.
Thank you to all for being here and listening. This is a great platform. I've been working in the capital markets with a company, LL Funds, a PE firm, and a firm we've just started about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, with AI, use of AI for assumptions on securitized products, which determine their value. That's how you come up with the value, you make assumptions, but how do you get granular assumptions when you only get like a credit score? We're looking to go down granular, down to very, very deep levels, which these type of platforms would provide, and come up with the way that the more accurate you can make your assumptions, the more accurate you can find their value, and the more efficient the markets will become for all players, whether they be a large, small, etc., or some innovative ideas of also putting together a variety of like asset-backed type of instruments and sell them as just a global type of asset-back with all the component parts being taken down by information that you would provide, so that your assumption on the whole would be much more accurate, although it would be made up of many parts. Currently, it's just one type of security at a time. We're trying to do like 10, 15 type of asset-backed classes at the same time, but it's all dependent on the accuracy and granularity of the data. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you, Maddie. So I'm going to conclude. The purpose of this call was to, in short order, be able to convey to my insurance colleagues that it is really not a one-man show, but rather we have on the shoulders of many people all looking to achieve similar outcomes. Better information can derive better outcomes. Better outcomes can provide better stakeholder services across the board. So on this Earth Day, I'm very appreciative of all my friends that have come forth to allow me to share to my insurance markets that it really is a collaboration of many, from academic, from finance, from contractors. It is a digital ecosystem that is going to make a big impact as we move forward.